ever since I knew how to draw, I was trying to sell pictures that I drew. Ever since I picked up music, I always wanted to run it as a business and learn how to sell my songs, right? Sell myself as an artist. So I think that kind of gave me my entrepreneur spirit and just that hustle mentality of going out and learn how to do it by yourself, learn how to
Hmm.
sell and market as much as possible, and learn how to build. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think it kind of grew into this thing where I think at my point in life, music isn't the right career for me anymore. And so pivoting into something of like music tangent and tech tangent made sense, and being able to move deeper into the entrepreneur journey is yeah, it just makes sense for me.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I have a very, very exciting episode for you this week. I chat with a music tech startup founder, Vu Ho. Now, he's a former engineering manager at Atlassian, which is the parent company for a company called Jira, which is a project management company. He worked there for about 6 to 7 years and then left to start his own company. Now, he's been in the music industry for the better part of 2 decades. He worked in rap, he's worked as a producer, an audio engineer, a songwriter, and a number of other things. So he founded a company called HITMKR, which aims to build solutions for creatives and push the boundaries of creativity. Now, in this episode, we talk about a number of things, including the pain points of starting a music tech startup. How does that all work? What even goes into something like that? We talk about the company and what HITMKR is and what they're doing. We talk about entrepreneurship and how that skill set and the skill sets of entrepreneurs can really help a budding industry professional. And towards the end of the episode, we actually talk about artificial intelligence and how that's going to factor in and change the scape of the music business, as if it isn't already. Before I let you go, be sure to sign up to my email list. That is the best way to stay in contact with me and be notified when new episodes are live. If you're listening and watching this on YouTube, give this a thumbs up, a comment, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos that I upload. If you're listening on a podcast streaming platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Deezer, or any of those other platforms, leave a 5-star rating and review. That really helps the show get discovered by new listeners. Follow me on socials, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all those. That's a good way to connect with me as well. And lastly, if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for this show, there's a link in the show notes below. Fill that out or have them fill it out, and I will be in touch. Without further ado, let's dive in to the conversation with Vu Ho. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to chat about HITMKR and everything that you've done in your career. It sounds like you've got a pretty extensive career yourself, almost 2 decades in music and rapping and production and all that stuff. So I'm excited to kind of dig in and hear what you and HITMKR is all about. So give us a brief introduction on who you are as a creative, and then give us a little overview of HITMKR as well, the company that you're running.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, thanks for having me on the show.
Of course.
So as a creator, I've started off as an artist, like a visual artist, um, and that kind of grew into a different form of expression to where I turned art into music. Started off writing a lot of songs, and with kind of like the DIY experience, I kind of got my hands into every pocket of the music industry,
Mm.
from music production, creating my own beats, to learning how to record at home, and later in my career, learning how to do audio engineering. So, kind of the entire spectrum. During my college years here in Austin, I spent a lot of time doing live shows as well. So, really tapping into the hip hop scene in Austin, Texas. And then that brought me around to building HITMKR about a year ago. Just as I was recording my last couple of songs, I had the idea of like, how can I make this entire process shorter for the next generation of musician? It took me about 17 years as an independent artist to kind of grow my connection and network. Um, and the idea of like making that a lot easier for the next group of musicians kind of came up, and that's how HITMKR came about. Um, HITMKR, when it first started off as an idea, we wanted to build out just a proof of concept. It was just a beats marketplace. It's not a novel idea. It's been around for quite a while. I think you probably heard of like SoundClick being the
Mm.
first online beats marketplace maybe 20, 25 years ago.
Hmm.
And then now you have more prominent players like BeatStars and Airbit coming in. So we kind of step our foot in there as well, just to prove that we can do it. And then it has evolved quite a bit since then. Now more into a collaboration platform, being an easier place for artists to come in with an idea, work with other musicians on the other end, and then come out with a actual song that you can distribute on streaming platforms.
Very cool. So walk us through, is this like a beat marketplace? Can you find other professionals and stuff on there? And how many users do you guys have?
Yeah, so right now we have 425 users. We have producers, audio engineers, and the third subgroup of users that we're onboarding at the moment is artists. So bringing in artists to work with the producers, work with the audio engineers, and also work amongst themselves to provide features. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Okay. So go back. Let's go back just a little bit. I want to hear a little bit more about your story, because I think that really helps tell the story of how we got to where we are today, and how
Yeah.
and why the platform is kind of coming about. So,
Yep.
um, you've been a rapper and producer, is that correct? And engineer.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah, did all three.
okay. So, do you have a favorite of which one, or did you like them all equally?
It depends. I think, I love being behind the scenes, just taking an idea and putting it down on paper, putting it into a recording. Like that part is always fun to me. But then when I'm doing live shows, it's kind of hard to beat that experience or beat that feeling when you're on stage and you're
Mm,
interacting with the crowd. That's always nerve wracking, first off, but then it's also very, I would say, almost addictive just to feel that energy and be able to move the crowd the way that you want to.
mm.
So I would say, to sum it up, probably being an artist is probably my favorite thing.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So what parts of being an artist were kind of your pain point that inspired you to start Hitmaker? Was it the issue of finding people to collaborate with and work with, or what was some of the reasons why?
First off, the resources. In order to create a song, it takes quite a lot of money, right? First
Yeah.
off, you have to be able to find the producers to work with, pay them for the beats. After you do the recording, you have to be able to afford like either studio time if you don't have studio equipment at home, or being able to find audio engineers to mix your songs at the end of the day, right? Because you can have
Hmm.
a really great idea, put together a really great song, but it doesn't sound polished, it's not professional. It's just not going to compare really well when it's sitting on a streaming platform with hundreds and thousands of other songs that are mastered and produced at a very professional level,
Hmm.
right? So that's one of the first pain point. And the second piece that you brought up is like finding people to work with. That's also very difficult. When I first started off, I was kind of constrained to the folks that are near me locally, right? So it's easy to reach out to a local rapper to work with, but it's very difficult to find someone else in a different state or in a different country based on the style that you really want. So it limits the style and limits the type of genre and like the creativity, I would say, based on who you have around you.
Mm. And you said you're based in Austin, right? Austin, Texas.
Yeah, based in Austin, yeah, but I grew up in Dallas. I moved to
Okay.
Austin when I was 18 and been there since.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's interesting. I have family in Dallas, so that's cool.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So what's it like in the Austin scene like? What's that like for this type of space?
The Austin scene, I would say, changed quite a bit. When I first came up in the Austin scene, hip hop was a bit more. I would say it was making noise, but it never got to the point where a hip hop artist actually put Austin on the map. It's always been like live music, so alternative rock, pop,
Mm,
things like that. It generally involves a live band. Those generally get the spotlight when it comes to music in Austin. So there
mhm.
is a small hip hop scene, but it's not really making a lot of noise like it should.
Of course. Of course. Um, so based on the people that are using your platform, Hitmaker, what are some of the things that they're turning to for, and what are some of their biggest pain points that they're looking to solve?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question just because we're still early stage and we're still trying to figure that out, right? As we're working a lot closer with our users. But I would have to say I would break that down into different users and how they leverage the platform. So the artists that we've seen come to the platform are looking more for they're on a hunt for beats, right? They
Mm,
have an idea for a song or they want to make a song, but they need that background music. So artists would go on to Hitmaker to find beats. Audio engineers, that's also a different breed. They already have clientels that they'll work with at either at the studio or they're hitting them up on social media to mix a project that they have already recorded.
mm.
Um, so audio engineers are providing more of or using Hitmaker to provide their services, either that or they're leveraging the collaboration platform in order to share a mix with their clients. So that's
Mm.
how it's being used at the moment.
Okay. So when people are buying a beat, for example, how are you guys handling the royalties and ownership of that?
Yeah. So right now, I would say it's pretty standard just amongst all the different beats marketplace. The only differentiator for us at the moment is that we keep our license standard across all the platforms. So regardless of who uploads the beats to sell, we have a standard non-exclusive license and a standard exclusive license. And so we kind of dictate or kind of take all the legal matters out of the hands of the producers, provide all the terms up front, and so those is kind of how we do it. But we don't actually manage the royalties because when it gets into the legal space, it becomes a bit more tricky to handle. So we actually don't deal with the legal percussion, right? So what we do is we provide you with the standard license, how long you can use it for, what you can use it for. But when it comes to pursuing that legally, that becomes an onus on the artist to do that.
Okay. Um, got it. Okay. So an artist buys a beat on Hitmaker and
Right.
they pick which license they want. They want exclusive or non-exclusive. Can you break those two down and what they mean?
Yeah. So for non-exclusive, it means you kind of lease the license. It's for a very discounted rate. So let's say a non-exclusive license could range between $30 to $50. Right? I can purchase a license off of that same beat. You can go and purchase the same license, and we can both create a song, right? Different versions of that song, leveraging the same beat. So that's the non-exclusive license. The exclusive license is when you purchase outright their entire right of that particular beat. So if I was to purchase the exclusive license, then that producer would have to take that beat off the marketplace. And going forward, no one else, no other artist could potentially get a lease using the same beat.
Mm. So when those beats are sold, the is there any way for the producer, the beat maker to receive credit, songwriting credit and royalties for that? Or how do you guys manage that to make sure that people are being credited properly?
Yeah, so we right now we don't have a way to manage that, and like I mentioned, when it gets to the legal part, it's a bit tricky, and our platform is not scaled up to do that. So by the time that an artist does record a song and they do go and get copyrights, it's up to the artist to do the copyright and up to the producer to go and pursue that. So it comes down to two types of copyrights with the composition and the master. The composition is kind of where the splits happen between the artist and producer. And generally it'll be 50-50 kind of if we're talking in terms of like genres for hip hop, R&B and pop where it's more digitally
Mhm,
produced,
mhm.
that would be a 50-50 split. But at the moment, we don't have anything in place to manage that. But moving towards the future, to kind of really build the complexity and build a more robust collaboration experience, we do want to be able to handle the split sheets and the splits up front. It is something that we're trying to develop, but it's not something that we have currently on the platform.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that gets to be a really murky place to
Yeah.
swim because it gets really complex very quickly.
Hmm.
And especially if somebody is buying, let's say somebody put up a beat, and then say 100 people bought that beat non-exclusively.
Right.
That's 100 different compositions that you should, in theory, uh, be credited on as a composer, as a songwriter,
Exactly.
because you
Right.
wrote the chords and the lyrics and the underlying composition. Now, owning the master is a different ball game, but at
Right.
least getting some credit in the composition is should be fair. So I think in the future that would be really ideal thing to have, like you said, building out that and being able to manage like who's purchased the beats and if they're releasing them and
Exactly.
copywriting them, which they should,
Right.
how those credits are being assigned and making sure that they're being inputted properly to like BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, SOCAN, whatever
Hmm.
PRO they're affiliated with, and all that stuff. So I think that's highly important.
Yeah, and we're taking the steps to go that route, right? Right now, it's still a bit transactional. When someone purchases a beat, they download the beat, and it's kind of disappears. You don't know what happens with it.
Hmm.
But we're trying to integrate that into the collaboration platform. So instead of just purchasing a beat, we are encouraging you or putting you into a workflow where you actually work on HitMaker with the artist or with the producer on the other end. So credit is handled up front. Collaboration happens with transparency for both parties. And then by the end of it, when a song is ready for distribution, we know exactly how the splits happen, how do we manage the royalties, and also maybe step into the disbursement of royalty at some point in the future. So we're really building out all the different components to really handle this whole collaboration or music collaboration remotely and
Mm,
online as much as possible.
of course, of course. How many people do you have on the Hitmaker team?
At the moment, we have
Okay.
five people on the team at the moment. Yeah, so pretty small.
Wow. And when did you guys start?
So we first started. So we incorporated back in June of 2021, and
Wow, very recent.
with that iteration, it was just the marketplace. With the collaboration release, that was back in August of 2022. So just a handful of months ago.
A few months ago. Wow.
Yeah,
That's exciting. Congratulations on that.
thank you.
Yeah, and how many users did you say you had?
425 at the moment.
Okay, so very, very small platform. And
Yep.
you guys are you planning to compete with like BeatStars and all those platforms, or what's kind of the niche you're looking to go towards?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say we want to compete with them. We're not in the same lane, right? I think the marketplace is just a component of what we're building out for our bigger
Sure,
ecosystem.
sure.
What we're trying to lean towards is more of collaboration, being able to be a one-stop shop for any type of musicians, and that's kind of like our first starting point. First off, we're dealing with music for now, being able to kind of allow artists to come into the platform with an idea, find all the resources, the different talent that you can work with, come out with the song, and have that being distributed to different streaming platforms. So music is kind of like the first piece that we're tackling, but then later down the road, we want to expand that into other creative mediums as well. Maybe tap
Okay.
into film, tap into photography, and just kind of be an all-encompassing um, platform for creatives.
Okay. That's very cool. Yeah, that would be interesting to see like photography and cinematographers. That would be something very different and something very necessary and needed in music. Musicians always need graphics and whatnot. So
Exactly, exactly.
that's always good. Oh, you were known as Kato Docs. That's what it was.
Yep. Yeah, that's my stage name. That's right.
That's your stage name. Cool. So I want to get into that just a little bit more, and I want to talk about that artist project because I love talking about artists. Are you still doing that project, by the way?
No, unfortunately, I haven't done music in the past. I think the last song I put out was maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. So
Okay.
ever since I started down this path of like entrepreneurship and really building out this platform, it's music's kind of taken a spot in the back seat. So
Okay. Do you
yeah,
plan on going back into music, or are you kind of retiring it and focusing on entrepreneur?
you know what? I mean, I would love to. I'm just naturally a creative person. I would love to be able to do music, do art as much as I can. It's just at this spot in this early stage, it's very difficult to find time. But any chance that I get, I would love to be a bit more involved with music for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely. So, as you're building Hitmaker, you have the experience that you need as a recording artist, as an engineer, as all these different things. You have that expertise, and you kind of know how are you filtering through the people that are joining the platform. Can anybody join the platform to say I'm a recording engineer, or do you have kind of a vetting process?
not yet. We don't have a vetting process in place, and I think it gets a bit tricky. for me, I truly believe that um, music should be available to everybody and anybody at
Hmm.
whatever level you're at. When I first started off, I was an amateur, and it takes a lot of time for you to progress and learn, and you have to start somewhere. So
Of
we're not
course.
trying to block anybody from learning and growing in their passion, right? I think for us, is we're trying to figure out how to divide up that tool so that it fits your level of where you're at, meet you where you're at, pretty much. Um, so we don't have a vetting process in place. I'm not sure if we want to put a vetting process in place. I think a better way to do that is figure out how to segment the platform so that we provide you with the right tools for your level of where you're at in your career. Um, but of course, it takes a lot of like deep dive and understanding the data, understanding your customers a bit more. We don't have that huge customer base yet, so it doesn't seem necessary at the moment.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did the name Hitmaker come from?
So it first started off with the word maker because we wanted to. I had this idea of being an all-encompassed type of platform, music, photography, and film, and it just comes down to like every one of those individuals are just makers. At the end of the day, they're making something. Um, but we couldn't get the domain for it, and of course, we couldn't get the domain for Hitmaker either. So I think I was just playing around with the wording, and that's how we come up with the spelling for Hitmaker. But I think at the root of it, when you're doing film, you're trying to make a hit, right? You're trying to make a hit film. When you're doing music, you're trying to make a hit song. So like Hitmaker still works, and it still kind of encapsulates that feeling of being a maker. At the end of the day, coming with an idea, making something that's tangible.
Very cool. So, what was now I want to get into kind of your startup here.
Yeah,
Going taking a little bit of a different tangent. What was your kind of your biggest pain point in starting Hitmaker?
I think finding the right people to help me out at certain spots of the way, like certain times. Starting off juggling things like when I was doing Hitmaker, I was still at my full time job. So finding the time to carve out the time during the day to like do the coding, figuring out how to do the marketing, figuring out how to bring on the first handful of users, and being able to do a balance of all that was very difficult. I think that was super painful. And then finding my first set of developers to help me out so we can move a lot faster, that was also very painful just because it's hard to vet who's on the other side when you don't meet them when you're in an environment of like working from home or working remotely. Being able to trust the person on the other end and say, all right, this is what I have in mind, let me clearly communicate my idea in a way that you can understand my vision and go out and help me build it. I think that was also very difficult, and that's something that I'm still learning today.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think starting a business is definitely not an easy feat, and,
Yeah.
I can imagine, finding the people that you want, that you can trust, that you see your vision, is very important. Um, so have you always wanted to start a business? Have you always been an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, ever since I knew how to draw, I was trying to sell pictures that I drew. Ever since I picked up music, I always wanted to run it as a business and learn how to sell my songs, right? Sell myself as an artist. So I think that kind of gave me my entrepreneur spirit and just that hustle mentality of going out and learn how to do it by yourself, learn how to
Mhm,
sell and market as much as possible, and learn how to build. And
mhm,
yeah, I think it kind of grew into this thing where you know music kind of. I think at my point in life, music isn't the right career for me anymore, and so pivoting into something of like music tangent and tech tangent made sense, and being able to move deeper into the entrepreneur journey is yeah, it just makes
mm.
sense for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you coding everything yourself? And I know you mentioned you had developers now, but are you, for the most part, coding a lot of the stuff yourself?
I wouldn't say so. I would say I'm coding here and there, but a lot of the more complex and um, robust things are kind of handed off to the team. At this point, like I couldn't dive in and do the complex things that they're doing. So I'm helping out where I can.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And what is kind of your main focus as the CEO and founder? What is kind of your main focus right now? Obviously, growing the business is one, but what are some of the kind of the day to days that you're taking to ensure that the platform is a success?
Yeah, I would say that's a handful of things. Making sure that we have enough money in order to operate is one important piece.
Sure.
Um, Making sure that we have the right timeline for certain things that we're rolling out for our audience, right? To not only keep them engaged but also deliver quick value. And then the biggest thing for us right now is figuring out how to bring on our last group of users, which is the group of artists, right? I think having enough artists on the platform will help us really tie our ecosystem together nicely. So that's where I'm shifting a lot of my focus towards.
Okay. Okay. And what would for Hitmaker? What would success look like for Hitmaker?
What would success look like for Hitmaker? I think for Hitmaker as a community and as a platform, being able to continuously generate original songs on a daily basis. I think once
Mm,
we're able to get to that stage, we'll realize, okay, we're successful now. We are a tool that artists depends on a daily basis. This is where they go to make music. This is where they go to, take their idea and turn it into something tangible for consumers to listen to. I think once we get to that spot, we'll know, okay, we're either successful or we're trending towards success. I would say.
mhm. And what's something like a tool that you're excited about to implement with Hitmaker? I know like a lot of musicians and companies are using artificial intelligence these days to
Hmm.
do a wide range of things.
Yep.
So, what is something that you're excited to implement with Hitmaker that could potentially make a really big impact?
So speaking of like on the like AI lane, where we want to get to in the future is to build out automated mixing,
Oh,
not to replace our audio engineer, but to give them a better starting point, right?
mm,
And this I think benefits both artists, producers, and audio engineers. So it takes a lot of time to kind of get the levels right when you first start off a mixing session. So imagine if you upload all your different components for a song, your stems. Um, AI would kind of take you to a place where like all the levels are good, gives you some suggestions on basic filtering, basic effects that you can put in place. And now the audio engineer starts right in the middle of the process rather than at the beginning. Right. So
mhm,
that's one way that we're thinking of implementing that. And then for the producer side, every time that you make a beat, you need someone to mix your beat so it sounds good enough for you to sell. Right. And that producers can generate 10, 20 beats a week. And it's just it's not very budget friendly to always get an audio engineer to help out with that. So if you can just crank that, do an AI feature where, here's the output, here's a better mix of your beat, like that's beneficial for them as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, that's a really cool feature. I just did an article for a site that I write for called EDM.com, and they have a I did an article on a company that called Audio Shake, and
mhm.
they're an AI based platform, and you can upload any song for any audio file, WAV, MP3, FLAC, OGG, I believe, and upload a full song with vocals, guitars, drums, everything, and it'll remove with high quality like the vocals.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
I
was
did hear
listening to
hear
some of
about
the
that.
examples. This is really cool, powerful stuff. So if they're using AI to do this stuff, I can only imagine where AI is going to go in 5 years, especially, with mixing and stuff.
Right.
And AI doesn't get tired. Doesn't get ear fatigue. So if you can train an AI system to just mix and master tracks all day long, it would never get tired and you could have it pumping out mixes
Yeah,
constantly.
exactly. And I think, the use of AI right now is very interesting. Like the latest one is like AI generated music, being able to
Mm,
like create a whole song off of AI. I think
yeah.
that's interesting, but maybe for me personally, I don't find it to be like the right application because it's hard to replace creativity and personality, right? The
Mhm,
uniqueness of an individual and what they think about and how they make a song. Like that's hard to replace. But like something like mixing, it's not I wouldn't say standard, but there's a framework for it, right?
mm,
You want to set certain levels correctly, you want to remove the muddiness, you want to cut out certain frequency, things like that. like AI could handle. It doesn't take away from the creativity of like the music making process.
Right. Right. And artificial intelligence isn't necessarily listening to this on repeat on Spotify. It's using algorithms that it's told to use, whereas a human
Hmm.
is making creative decisions, and an AI may not, maybe more making more like mathematical decisions.
Right.
I like what you were mentioning as well about being able to do automatic mixing. I purchased Isotope's Ozone 10. I upgraded
Yeah.
from 8, and I tried out one of their biggest pushes was their artificial intelligence mixing or mastering. And I
Yeah.
clicked it and it listened to my song. It was like a dance music song, and you could select from one of 10 presets. And it actually had a really, really good starting point.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have never used this plugin, but let me see what it's doing and bypass it. And oh, I really like what that's doing. Let me enhance it a little bit more. Let me pull it down. But I think AI is getting to a point in music is getting to a point where it's really, really functional, and it's actually becoming useful. Where maybe 2, 3 years ago, it was like, this is just kind of a gimmick. I remember when Lander
Yeah.
launched their automated mastering, and that was like, oh my
Right.
God, is this really the next thing? Um, and it's like, yeah, it is for people who don't know anything about mixing or mastering, and they can get their song uploaded and spit out in an out in 5 minutes and have a high
Right.
quality, louder sounding professional mix. They'll do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's interesting you brought that up because when Lander first came out, I also used it. And I couldn't tell when I processed it. It was like, is it just putting it through a limiter and just making it louder, like you
right.
said?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just sounds louder, but it was very muddy. Like sonically, it was just wasn't there. It just didn't have that ambience, or the room or the breathe within the song. It just sounded super muddy and just loud. Like great, it works well if you're just dropping singles every day. I'm not sure where it's at the moment, but yeah, when it first started off, it wasn't as usable. So it
Mm.
was very interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of a gimmick, and I think at the beginning I put a few tracks through it, and it was like very bright and
Hmm.
almost too bright it almost hurts your ears, and then there was like
Yep.
no, and it almost sounded like they did maybe a limiter or maybe some multiband compression,
Yep.
multiband limiting, and it was just like the highs were boosted and the lows were brought down, and it's come a long way in 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
And now people are making music, people are creating cover art based on AI. They're going to Dolly and inputting prompts and creating cover art
Yep.
based on that. I think that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
But I
That's
think
pretty cool.
that's gonna create some challenges down the road as well. So
Definitely.
for sure. That's really cool. So I like to keep the episodes pretty short. I notice my audience kind of likes to listen to shorter episodes. So I'll keep this one kind of short. But is there anything else that you want to add or talk about? It can be any music related. It can be hitmaker related. I want to open the
Yeah,
floor.
I mean, I think one of the new things that we're trying to push is our Hitmaker collaboration program. So we're launching that this week actually. So it'd be nice to kind of amplify our voice and bring on a bunch more artists. Right now we're looking for 10 artists with kind of working in three specific genres: hip hop, pop, and R&B, and we're sponsoring their songs. So we're giving them free access to our beat catalog, access to our producers and our audio engineers, and we'll help them kind of craft their music all the way through from the idea stage to working with the talent on the other end, and then finally distribution. So
Mm,
fully sponsored by Hitmaker. So if any artists out there that are interested, go to hitmaker.com and sign up. And yeah, I'll share the link with you as well to
cool.
walk through the steps.
Yeah. Are you building out like a distribution platform where you can actually distribute your music to Spotify?
Not yet. Not
Not yet.
yet, but we
Okay.
do want to do that. Yeah. The idea, like I mentioned, Hitmaker, we want to be a one stop shop. So
Uh,
in order to be one stop shop, distribution has to be at the end of the chain.
yeah, of course.
Yep.
Of course. That's very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Vu, and sharing all of the information about Hitmaker and your career and as well. I look forward to checking out Hitmaker and seeing it grow and hopefully become a household name.
Definitely. Thanks, Lennon. Appreciate the time. Really
Yeah, of
enjoyed the,
course.
the conversation with you.
Of course. Thank you.